we raised $5 million out of the gate before we even launched anything. I wish we didn't do that. Not every business succeeds. Most don't. So how much am I willing to spend of my personal money on it? I still also get imposter syndrome every once in a while.
Brian, I'm super excited to have you on. You're now on your third business, right?
That's right.
But the thing that's most interesting to me is all three of them have been so wildly different that you're able to kind of like experience and speak to all the different stages of business that the listeners here are listening to, right? So maybe share, I won't steal your thunder, share a little bit about that, like maybe a bit about business 1, 2, 3. What are the main differences there and how do we get to where we are today?
Sounds good. Well, thanks for having me, Brian. I'm excited to be here. I'm Brian Nolan. I consider myself a serial entrepreneur. I started a company back in 2013 called Sellbrite, which was a software as a service, e-commerce driven business that helped small to medium-sized online retailers sell across all the marketplaces. So think Amazon and eBay and Etsy and all those channels. That ended up being acquired by GoDaddy in 2019 as part of their strategy to build e-commerce tools and so forth. So I spent a couple years at GoDaddy as head of product for those tools. And after 2 years, I moved on, like you said, started something new but different, still kind of e-commerce-y, but this was in travel. So we started a company called Book Outdoors that was a online travel booking site for outdoor accommodations. So think campgrounds, RV parks, and so forth. So we were a marketplace ourselves, consolidating all that inventory and making it easy to find and search and book any of those spaces. We ended up selling that to a competitor called HipCamp after 3 years. I did not stay on there. I moved on. And now I'm on business number 3. This time, being a little older and a little more tired, I decided to buy a business rather than start from zero and go put myself through that torture again. So we bought this business called Darren and Phillip, my wife and I. And Darren and Phillip is a direct consumer apparel brand, premium lifestyle apparel brand for dog lovers. So you have, all these different lifestyle brands for different interests like golf and surfing and yoga and you name it, right? There's an apparel brand for that. We're the one for dog lovers. So we make functional, comfortable, premium apparel for dog people and matching things for their dogs as well, and accessories like dog walking bags and leashes and collars and so forth. So we bought this business about 1.5 years ago, and we've been trying to figure it out. Most people go from this hard inventory style business to software. We went the other way around, and we've been trying to figure it out and grow this business in the last 1.5 years.
And was it, so you said, okay, you're lazy now, right? So as am I. And so you want to buy a business instead of build it. Was it what you expected? Like, was it that much easier to buy, right? I'm sure there's other difficulties, but like that much easier to buy a business than it is to build your first 2? Knowing what you know now. Imagine you have the same skill set, right?
It was easier because a lot of the basics had been set up already, right? Like the Shopify store is already going. There was already momentum. There was already a customer base, a pretty large customer base actually, and Instagram following. We bought it with about 140,000 Instagram followers and about 40,000 customers. So all of that, yeah, that was a lot easier. But now taking it and scaling it, I don't think is any easier than had we started from scratch, right? Because there's still all those same challenges of trying to scale the business and grow it.
Are there different challenges that you didn't expect? Like I imagine like you didn't put those systems in place, right? And so maybe there's skeletons in the closet you just didn't expect.
Yeah, I think for the first 6 months it took to learn the business. We kept the founders or the sellers, I guess, around for 6 months to learn from them, but also to make improvements on the systems and where they were selling, how they were selling, the Shopify apps they were using, all those things. I try to go in and see where we can tinker and improve. So, yeah, that was probably the first 6 months. And then the next year since then, we've been really trying to make the brand our own, because what we realized buying a business was, especially this kind of business, this lifestyle business, was heavily tied to the founder and her 2 dogs, which it's named after. And once those they were all gone, it's a different business now, and we can't just replace them. So we're trying to make it our own and reposition the brand a little bit to be our brand and our vision and what we think of it. But I think the biggest piece of it that we kept, which is most interesting for us and what we were passionate about, was the mission-driven piece. So the brand, in the 10 years that it's existed, has donated over $1.25 million to dog rescues around the world, and we've kept that going and try to grow that piece of it too. So that's a really exciting piece for us.
How'd you decide to buy it? Like, are you a huge dog fan?
We started looking at all kinds of businesses, and originally the
Yeah.
idea was to go down this trend of what's happening right now with buying like boring service businesses of, the older generation that's retiring. So things like HVAC or landscaping businesses or something like that, something local and boring and almost passive. But after digging in and looking at some of those businesses, my personality, I couldn't do it. Like, I'm not excited about that. I want to wake up and be excited about what we're building. I've actually way long ago in my early entrepreneurial days had a small menswear clothing company back in the day. So I had some experience with that. And e-commerce, my whole career is built around e-commerce in one way or another. And we've had 5 rescue dogs together, my wife and I, in our life. So
No way.
it's kind of like all these things came together. We found this business. It had good metrics. Again, we underestimated certain things about it, but lessons learned, and so it's been a fun but difficult business to run.
Yeah. And what did you underestimate? Like, were the things that you underestimated like first time buyer mistakes that you think you could fix if you did it again?
I think there's ways we could have unsurfaced some of these red flags. So actually, my wife, I should have listened to my wife first. Husband, lesson learned here.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she had the red flag of like, well, she really realized that this business was so heavily tied to the founder, especially on the social media side of things, and like the engagement, and the customers were buying because there was this relationship over years with the founder and her 2 dogs. And so my wife kind of had the intuition that if that goes away, what's that going to mean for the business? And so we actually did a survey of customers during our due diligence to find out why they were purchasing from the brand. And we had them stack rank all these different things, and they ranked those things low in the survey. So that gave me confidence. But what we really should have done is like put it to the true test, and maybe had my wife step in and launch a new collection in place of the seller and see what the reaction is online for that. Like, if we could have done something where she was actually testing out that thesis to see how people would respond, then I think we would have really have known. But we didn't, unfortunately, know until 6 months later. And it was also an Australian based brand, and so we also underestimated how much Australians prefer to purchase from local Australian companies rather than US American companies. So those 2 things combined kind of took us into this J curve that a lot of people who buy businesses experience, which is revenue goes down first before it comes back up. So hopefully we're near the bottom of this J curve, growing now.
That's funny. That's wild. And so there's there's the Australian side, the cultural side that you didn't expect, which is, hey, people want to buy local. And the founder side, like the key man risk on the social media stuff.
Totally.
And so what you would do differently then, is it the due diligence of like taking this as a serious risk and saying like, we're not going to buy because of this thing? Or is it being like, hey, there's a huge risk, let's try these tests to see if we can actually like convert on the back end? Like, would you have changed the acquisition because of it, or would you change the strategy?
I think so. I mean, we may have still proceeded with the acquisition, but I think, I think we relied too much on a survey. If you talk to like Eric Ries of Lean Startup, I think he's like totally against surveys, right? So we relied too much on those survey results, which can be you could get false positives from that, and that's essentially what happened with us. We should have done what I said. We should have put it into practice, or done other things, or hit. We did put some of the purchase price tied to a milestone, revenue milestone. I should have put more tied to it, right?
Oh, interesting.
And those kinds of things that if I could go back and do again. But again, first time buyer. I've sold 2 businesses. You would think that I would learn from those, but
Yeah,
also a little different being bought by GoDaddy, a big
right.
public company versus a small business transaction here. So um, I don't regret buying it, but I may have done things differently.
Yeah. And I think the others you said with your last business, it was bought by GoDaddy. Um, I think the other cool thing that you guys did so differently is in all three of your businesses, um, how you guys work, like the management style and how you work is so different. Right? I think if I remember correctly, in your first business, it was all in person,
That's
right?
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
Sellbrite was pre-pandemic, so nobody was even thinking about remote. Yeah. We had I think 2 people on the team that were remote, one engineer and one like small marketing agency that was helping us, William.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
And William Harris, shout out to William Harris. And but everybody else was in office. We built it, we started actually in an incubator in Pasadena, California, and they gave us some desk space, and we started bringing in hiring people and bringing in, there was like first me and my co-founder and then a couple engineers, and built it out from there, and eventually got our own office. And it was just so fun. Like, looking back, a lot of people don't like having to go into the office 5 days a week. But those early days, I mean, we're still good friends with all those people. It was like a family. I mean, a lot of times people try to say, "Oh, don't talk about your business like a family. It's not a family. It's different." But it honestly was like we really cared about each other, and that culture that got built there was like all of us in the trenches, good or bad. We celebrated together. We bonded together when things went bad to like try to, get out of the bad situation or whatever. And I don't think you have that truly unless you get to know your teammates on a personal level. And you get to know them on a personal level by being around them all day, and seeing how they are and how they live, and how, going to lunch with them and talking in the halls or whatever. Like there's nothing that replaces that personal contact, and being able to build a team that way. And I think you're just way more productive and can move faster when you're in person. Now, contrast that to the next business, Book Outdoors, which started during the pandemic and was fully remote. As much as we tried, and we did get
Yeah.
people together and flew everybody in from, different parts of the country, and we even had people in different countries. It was harder to bring them in, but at least people in the States got them all together. But, even if you spend a couple days together, how much can you really get to know that person versus like spending years together every day? So it's just very different. It's different, and it's harder to get um, maybe accountability, or to get those people to really like care about the other people on the team, and don't want to let anybody down, and really take ownership of the business. That's been my view on it. So now with this third business, I'm trying to do a combination of that, where I don't have an office. I mean, I'm in my own office here, but I don't have a team
Right.
office. But the contractors that I have, I try to hire locally here in the Denver area where I live, so that we can meet up easier, and I don't have to like plan a whole week long thing and fly everybody in. We can just like go meet at a coffee shop. So
Yeah.
that's like, it's still not ideal to me, but I think this works for everybody and for people who want some kind of like hybrid option. But I think the in-person piece is so important.
Yeah. So I was in person for 6 years, right? And agreed, loved it, way more productive, got to meet my friends. Again, like some of my closest friends were like people I worked with, right? Um, and it's hard to recreate. As soon as we went to COVID, it was hard to recreate that entirely. Like I didn't feel that connection to my coworkers during COVID that I did before COVID, right? So I get that. And then, But like, what about, so on the productivity, so there's like the personability, and I imagine if you're closer with your peers, you're going to do more. You're going to push more for it. You're going to support each other, all that kind of, you're going to like sacrifice a little more, I
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah. I feel
Um, I feel it
my
for
experience.
sure.
Yeah.
What about on the productivity side? Like, what is it, do you think, what is it about the remote versus in person that impact productivity?
So I kind of think it depends on a role too, because I've had a lot of software engineers who say, I need to get in the zone, I need to focus, and I can do that
Yeah.
better at home with no distractions and just put on my headphones and like jam, for 8 hours straight with Red Bulls or whatever. Like,
Right, right,
well,
right.
I get it that certain roles or certain jobs, like you might be better off if you don't have the distractions of an office. But anything that's like collaborative in any way, it's just so much easier to sit in a room with a whiteboard or notepad or whatever and like talk through it. Anybody who's watching this has been on a Zoom call knows that it's hard to like interrupt somebody on a Zoom
Yeah,
call. It's hard to
yeah,
it's just the back and forth is not the same no matter what. No matter what, like it's not the same as being in person and being able to just like riff on stuff, or just to have an idea and not have to like schedule a meeting for some time in the future, just to be able to go over to that person and be like, hey, I just thought of this, what do you think of this, like, and hash it out in 5 seconds and be done and go back and like start working on it or whatever. Like all those little things, I think, just for me as at the CEO level, and my job is to like help guide the team and hire the best people to do the right things and give them the vision and the strategy and collaborate. For me, it was always way better to do that in person.
How much of it do you think, as you're saying that, it makes me think like, Paul Graham, when he talks about founder of YC, when he talks about the maker schedule versus the manager schedule, right? Which is like the programmers just building, they don't want to be interrupted, right? When you walk over and you poke them on the shoulder, they're like, you just destroyed
Yeah.
30 minutes, 40
Yeah.
minutes of like
Right.
focus time. Shut up, Brian's,
Right.
right? Like, um, but then the managers, who's us, who wants to know the updates, who wants to connect, all that kind of stuff, we're more productive by being able to walk over and tap people on the shoulder, be like, what happened here? Tell me what happened here. Um, do you think, and do you think makers or builders are more productive at home, where managers are more productive in office?
It's very possible. Yeah. Like I said, especially something that takes deep thought like software engineering, where
Yeah.
you really need to zone in, and any kind of context shifting takes you out of that for 30 minutes. And then you got to like, okay, where was I? And get back to, thinking about solving these hard problems. Anything like that. Yeah, I think so. Maybe other roles, even if you're an independent, even if you're an individual contributor and you're working on actually building something, um, possibly more like on the creative side, maybe that's not the case. Like maybe on the creative side, it is just as productive to be with other people and have, the influence of other things happening around you. And um, so I just did think it depends on what the role is
Yeah.
and like how deep in thought you need to be to
Yeah. That's
problem your.
what, yeah, that's why I think it depends on the culture you want to create, right? But then also, and culture is a trade-off. There are some people who are going to be more disrupted by a certain culture you decide, and there's more people who are going to be productive by a certain culture you decide. But then also nuances by role, right? Like maybe to your point, someone who just needs to focus for 10 hours a day should do it wherever they focus best. I don't know. It depends. Did you figure out, so when you switched to your remote business, like what did you try to do to get people more productive?
Gosh, I mean, just more frequent when it was fully remote at Book Outdoors, like more frequent check-ins,
Yeah.
just to make sure like everybody's on track. And, even if they're small little meetings or check-ins on Slack or something like that, but like, borrowing a lot of the ideas, I guess, from software engineering and like agile practices where you're have your daily stand up and it's just really an update in 15 minutes and, get everybody on the same page. Things like that, I think, could be helpful when you're fully remote. the in-person definitely helped. Like even when we did get together for a week every 6 months or whatever together in person, everybody came away from that thing saying like, oh, like that was awesome. We got so much done in that short amount of time. And um, so I think just doing that as much as possible. The ideal situation is, 2 days in the office and 3 days working from home. And the office time is all about collaboration, and the home time is all about productivity and just like cranking all the things you talked about in the office. I know
Yeah.
right now here locally in Denver, their company does that same thing. So it's actually for software engineers, it's 3 days at home. For everybody else, it's 2 days at home, and the rest of the time in the office. And it seems like a good balance.
Yeah. I think for us, so we're fully remote as well. And what I've thought about a lot is like I think the one downside that I don't think we haven't mentioned yet, we talk about productivity, we talk about collaboration, but not training, right? And I
Yeah.
think um, some of the best learnings I had was being in the office and having someone just like show me their computer and be like, Brian, you messed up. Like you did that wrong, and here's how you improve it. And that was 3 minutes, and it just enough of those like a compound, you become a much better employee. And so we've been
I think
trying to
especially
design.
for,
Okay.
sorry to interrupt, Brian, but like,
No,
especially
go.
for fresh out of school, like junior level employees, that's how you learn. You learn from your peers. You learn from watching other people or whatever. And I remember thinking during COVID, like, I don't know what all these college graduates are going to do, starting a new job, brand new job, first job, like remotely with no one around to coach them. Like,
It's
how do you learn?
hard.
Yeah, totally.
It's really hard. And I don't know, like I would not be the person I am today if I didn't have people just smack me in the face and be like, you did this wrong. Like, look at my computer.
Right.
Um, yeah. Have you thought about that? Like, do you approach training any differently because of it, or like other than frequency? Like, is there a different communication style? Like, what have you guys experimented with?
Well, now, our company is small. So the people that we
Yeah.
do work with and bring on are a little bit more experienced people. So I don't really have any junior level people on the staff that needs to be trained. If anything, it's training on what our brand is and what are we about and, what are we trying to accomplish here. So, thank God for AI now. We can make like brand guidelines and things like that pretty easily and share them around. And, um, so but again, I've been trying to bring on people that are local as much as possible so that I can meet in person, even at a coffee shop or something, and just have that time in the beginning. Um, oops, sorry. Um, so yeah, it's like I said, I don't know what I would do trying to bring on a junior level person fully remote and how to get them up to speed without spending all day on Zoom with them and like hand holding because
Hmm.
that's just difficult.
Yeah, it's tough. And I definitely, we've tried to recreate a lot of the trainings that I had back I was a corporate guy before, back in my corporate days. And so we've done problem solving trainings and communication trainings because communication is different remote. Like the frequency has to go up, to your point. And then two is the level of specificity and clarity has to go up. And I think it's hard, especially when you haven't, I don't think, and I think I've seen a lot of different remote cultures. Um, and I think a lot of folks treat remote culture like it's in person.
Yeah, you can't. It's different. And we haven't even talked about like time zones. And if you have people in 8 hours ahead of you on your team, and how are you making sure, they have enough to work on before you're even awake or, you're not burning like cycle times, days go by just to like go back and forth on something like, so that's hard too, having people across different time zones. It's hard enough just in the States with 3 time zones, or I guess 4 if you include Hawaii. But um, if you're in different countries and you're talking many, many hours apart, that's hard.
Hmm. That makes sense. Yeah. And I mean, we did have offshoring kind of before COVID. And so like, I think some teams have had practice for the offshore, for the overnight shift, let's call it. I remember we did that for years, for a little bit.
And sometimes
Um,
that works really
but
great.
no,
Things
okay.
like engineering or QA or whatever, right? If you can at the end of your day, you give them stuff to do and you wake up and it's done and you, like, that's awesome. Like that
Yes,
works in your benefit.
that was amazing. Yeah, that's been awesome. That's been awesome. Um, yeah. Okay. And then so now you're like you're on your third business, and you're thinking about how do you structure it, right? Like, do you like you learn these from the first two? You want to be air quotes lazy, right? What does lazy mean in Brian's world?
I want to I want to have the best people around me doing the most important tasks of the business so that I can spend my time strategizing or thinking about what's next, where do we want to go, and I'm not in the weeds every day. Honestly, right now I'm in the weeds every day, so I'm not there yet. I'm still trying to figure out who those people are that I need for different parts of the business to enable it to grow, and find those people and find quality people to do that I trust. So I'm not there yet, but I think it's it's the ability, it's the flexibility, I guess. I don't know if I consider it lazy, but it's the flexibility
Yeah.
to focus on the things that I think are important and not obviously the nitty gritty of it is important, but like not be deep in the weeds every day.
And how do you know? So you said you're gonna find the best people. Do you have a judgment or tricks to find who you think are the best people?
I'm not as good at it as A, my wife, and B, my previous co-founders. Um, I rely heavily on, honestly, on a lot of it is on instinct and going back to the culture. Like, can I see myself working with this person every day and, um, and having fun? Like, I want to have fun. The whole point of this for me is like to build something and have fun doing it. So I don't want it to be a stressful thing. I don't want it to feel like I'm managing somebody every day. And I want it to feel like we're, a little team here that's out to try to win together. And we all have our thing that we need to do. And we're going to go do it together and win. And, so that's kind of what I look for a lot. I mean, there's always the skills part of it, of course, but that you can kind of like suss out pretty easily. But for me, it's like, do I want this person on my team? And am I going to have fun working with them? Goes back to the
And
culture.
how? Yeah. Are you in? Because are you very intentional about designing culture, or is it more kind of like fit to who you are?
If I'm being honest, probably a little more the latter. We certainly did things at my previous companies that tried to quote unquote build culture, like put it, do it intentionally, um, really around like optimism. I'm very optimistic. I think any founder needs to be like extremely optimistic. So having an optimistic mindset and compassionate and empathetic mindset, we definitely did things to build culture around that. But that's just who I am also. So it also sort of comes naturally. And I'm looking for people that have that when I'm talking to them in interviews, like that come across as optimistic and um, yeah. Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both maybe, I don't know. That's not a good answer, but some of it's
No,
intentional.
it's
I think most of it is really just kind of like coming from me.
yeah, but I think I mean it is a good answer because it's I think some people try to design a culture that gets them a result. And I think you're at the stage now where culture to you means someone that like you love working every day, right? Like where you love what you're doing, um, which is an amazing level of control for an entrepreneur. Like I love that. Um, and so what does that structure look like today? So you said it's a small team, as is it small, kind of remote, but like kind of local. Um, what does your team structure look like, and why did you make those choices?
So my wife and I own the company, and the first thing was picking our lanes. So she's definitely more of the creative, visual creative product development, things like that. And I'm more, I come from more of a technical background. So I'm the the Shopify and like getting all the apps and the financial side of things and all that. But then our team is people where we felt like we needed expertise to take some of these like day-to-day things off our hands that just take a lot of time. So for instance, we sell on Amazon. creating our Amazon listings and managing the whole Amazon and creating the A plus content and like sending in FBA inventory, all that stuff. I have a team, it's a small agency really, but a single guy that I work with on that and doing all that for us. Same with like email and SMS. That needs to be done all the time. Like you should be sending multiple emails a week. And it's just a lot of time to like do all the graphics and, all the design of the emails, figure out what you're going to be promoting, what the theme is, and then set it all up and send it and analyze it. So I have a team doing that. And then similar to Amazon on TikTok Shop, that's another whole area, working with the affiliates on TikTok Shop and sending out product seeding and samples and, engaging those affiliates and getting them to post content. It's one of those things you just have to be on top of every day. So I have somebody doing that. So it's all these little like tasks. And for the main part of the marketing, a lot of it falls on my wife and I. And so I think I'm now in the phase where I need to find a sort of a head of marketing, somebody, but like still somebody that is a contributor, not like a CMO level that doesn't want to do any of the work, but somebody who who wants to be on this journey with us and build something cool and like can do a lot of the stuff as well and take over a lot of the strategy around marketing.
Okay, and so I'm hearing, so you've got someone who does the fulfillment side stuff, right? Someone who does email, SMS, and someone who does TikTok and affiliate, etc. Um, but the first one I heard you say is an agency. How did you decide whether it's what made you decide whether it's a contractor versus an agency versus hiring in-house?
Honestly, the first one so the Amazon guy that runs all that, I got introduced to the I guess the owner of the agency, and the person introduced us said, yeah, you need to meet him. He does all the Amazon work. And so it wasn't until a little bit later, like after meeting and talking with him, that I realized, oh, it actually is a small agency. It's not just him. He has a team of people doing some of the work. So that wasn't really intentional. I didn't go seek out an agency. It was more like I was actually looking for one person and then it turned into an agency, which is fine. And the TikTok side is just a single person. Like I just went out and scoured LinkedIn and found somebody that I thought had the skill set that I needed and contacted them. And then on the email SMS side, that's also a small agency. And that was a referral from a friend who has another direct to consumer brand that he's been using them and is happy with the results. So that goes a long way, right? If somebody you trust can vouch for an agency. I'm pretty skeptical on agencies in general because I feel like they cost a lot of money and you don't always get the attention or the outcome that you would get if you just hired a contractor or an employee. Not always. There's plenty of great agencies out there, but you got to find the right ones, and I'm skeptical. But when they come recommended, then that makes a big difference.
Yeah, there's so many, so it makes sense.
Yeah, it's crazy. I've lost a lot of money, earned a lot of money on agencies where I've gotten results.
Have we all? And so were any of these decisions that you've made intentionally from being burned in the past? Like, did you learn anything from your previous businesses? You're like, hey, we're only doing contractors. We're only doing agencies because of this. Like, we're not hiring in-house or.
Hopefully I've learned something. God. And I try to learn and I try to remember the pain that, or lessons from the past. I heard it's like pregnancy though, where like you get far enough away from the pain of having a baby and then you forget and then you go get pregnant again. But yeah, I've tried. There's so many lessons, right? That sometimes it's not like you can remember everything and like always make the right choice the next time. So I certainly try to do that. For us right now, it's really a dilemma about like, do we continue just working with contractors versus building a team? I actually would like to build a team, like employees, right? An actual in-house team. It really comes down to, it's a little bit of more of a risk for me and them. And I don't I think I'm empathetic to the people that I'm hiring. If I'm going to hire somebody as an employee and they're going to go quit a job that they have, I want to make sure that I have a company that is going to be, growing and around, and then I can keep that person on board for a long time. I don't want to be in a position where I bring somebody on as an employee and then have to lay them off 6 months later. So that's always what I'm thinking about. A contractor gives you a little more of that freedom to be able to say, okay, let's do a 3-month contract or a 6-month or a year. And if it's working great, then we'll renew. And you could always do contract to hire, as you grow, but it's a good way to like get to know somebody before diving in fully and bringing them on as an employee. Plus there's just a lot more overhead and work to be done as an employee with payroll and benefits and all those things. So that goes back to like, how much more do I want to put on my plate, administrative
Hmm.
work? And when am I ready to do that? So I think it's a little bit of a catch-22, because some of it is I need to offload some of the work that I'm doing so that I can do some of these other things, but that means bringing on somebody to do it. So, it's hard.
Yeah. And so that's interesting. Let's jam on that shit. Let's nerd out a little bit. Let's talk about that challenge for a little bit.
Okay.
Um, and so what's making you what's making you decide that at this point in the business? Like it seems like you're at a certain part of the journey and now you're thinking of investing more in employees versus investing elsewhere. Like what's the challenge?
Yeah, investing is a good word, because we personally invested in buying this business. So I don't have outside funding. This is my money that I used to buy this business. And what I mentioned earlier, when we bought it, we're at this J curve, meaning when we bought it, revenue started sliding a little bit, and we're trying to turn things around and bring it back up. So it's this balance of how much am I comfortable investing, in addition to what I invested already to buy the business, into a team to turn things around and and to start growing the business. Some would argue that it's that actual investment in the team that's going to allow me to grow the business.
Yeah.
So this is really like a personal gut decision of how much am I willing to risk, and how much optimism do I have, and how much do I believe that I actually have a good brand and a good product, which I do believe that. And if I can find the right people that I can give this work to, they can help me grow it and turn it around, versus me trying to turn it around and grow it by myself and then go hire people. I think that's a much harder thing to do. So it's just this risk tolerance, and I own it with my wife, so we both have to make this decision together. Um, and that's kind of what I'm dealing with right now, honestly.
And that's an interesting one because I imagine this is a juncture that you've faced before in one of your previous businesses. But the difference here is probably two. One said, you said this time you didn't have outside funding, whereas if I remember correctly, business two had funding, right?
Yeah, business one had a little bit of funding too. So business one was, I call it bootstrapped because we operated so lean, but we had a little bit of angel investment and 250K from the incubator that we joined. Um, but that's not a lot of money, to grow a business. And we didn't have millions. We never had more than a couple 100K in the bank. And so we had to operate really lean and try to maintain at least break even for as long as possible. Um, Business two, we raised $5 million out of the gate pre-seed before we even launched anything, which I actually did. In hindsight, I don't like. I wish we didn't do that. I wish
Yeah,
we would have
and
raised $500,000 to get things moving and then raise more as we went, because raising that much early on was just way too much pressure to grow fast and make all the right decisions in the beginning and get to a certain point so you can raise the next round. And that's just not my style of management, I guess. I'm more about pouring fuel on the fire once you have things figured out, and we just didn't have, it's too early to raise that kind of money. But this one is now all my personal money, so How much am I willing to risk basically on growing this business? It's hard. Not every business succeeds. Most don't. So how much am I willing to spend of my personal money on it?
And so interesting. So with the last one, you said, "Hey, if I had raised 500,000 instead of 5 million, there would have been less pressure. I would have been, you would have you enjoyed it more." I think is what you were saying.
I think so. And I
Uh,
think it would have just created more discipline on spending. Um, there was almost this like feeling that we had to spend this money within 3 years and get to a certain point so that we could go raise the next round. It was all about like we got into the fundraising cycle, the vicious fundraising cycle from day zero, which it's not healthy for starting a business. Like it's just,
yeah. Got it. So the pressure is to spend to grow as fast as possible. Whereas if you had raised 500,000, the expectations, meaning your investors' expectations of the returns are much lower over a longer time period, basically.
well, and you just don't, if you raise 500K, let's say, or whatever, a few hundred thousand, the milestone where you need to be able to then go raise more money is a much lower bar than if you raise
Mm,
5 million and the next round now needs to be 10 or 20 million. To raise 20 million, that's a high bar for a little startup.
yeah,
To be able to get from zero to that bar in, call it 2 to 3 years is hard. And,
that's an,
you know, yeah, I mean, it was really hard and it was a lot of pressure.
yeah. And so now, so okay, so business two was super high pressure, all that kind of stuff. And it seems that this one is more in line with Brian's lifestyle and desires. Not calling it a lifestyle business per se, because I think there's like interesting connotations with it. Connotations. I can't speak today. um, but it seems like such a different business than your second one.
Yeah.
What made you decide to go down that route instead of another funded business?
Um, Again, it just kind of came down to first this idea of, well, let's go buy a business. Now we have some funds to be able to go do it. And, we did get a loan to, to finance it, but it's still, personally backed loans. So we're on the hook for it. Um, but yeah, it just kind of came down to that. And, it's a weird position because as an entrepreneur, I'm pretty risk adverse. I mean, if you're I'm sorry. I'm not risk averse. I'm a risky person, right? If you're an entrepreneur and you're risk adverse, you're not going to be very successful because you need to take risks to be an entrepreneur. But so I have that side of me, but then the other side of me is like personal finance money that I am not as risky with. And so these two things kind of like colliding of I'm willing to like double down and try to do whatever I can to grow this business. I'm willing to be risky with my time. I'm less willing to be risky with my own personal my family's finances. So, um, that's a little bit of a conflict for me, and I'm trying to get through that piece of it. Could we go? There are investors that invest in direct to consumer brands, so I probably could go raise, money, if I'm willing to give up a piece of the company to go do that. But, and maybe that's a path. I don't know. We've thought about it.
Yeah. And I imagine, like, I'll define risk as like, hey, bad thing happening, likelihood of that bad thing happening, right? Um, and if you've done this enough times for long enough, the likelihood of bad thing happening is much lower for you than it is for someone like me who's on business number one, right? Um, do you, do you take that into account at all? Like, do you think like, okay, I've done this enough times, the likelihood of the bad thing happening, I feel a little more confident making these bets.
I do. I do feel that way, but I still also get imposter syndrome every once in a while. Like that never goes away. And I think if you talk to the most successful entrepreneurs out there, they'll tell you that same thing. Sometimes that imposter syndrome creeps into your mind. And what that
Interesting.
is like self-talk of saying, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not qualified for this, right? That's just in your own mind, all right? And that's fighting that that mindset. Like I said, I wake up most of the days optimistic and feeling like I can win. Um, and days where I don't feel that way, I really just cut the day short and I go do something else because I don't like feeding that feeling and it just makes me feel like crap, honestly. And like, I'm like, so I'll just close my laptop and go do something else, exercise or walk or whatever, just take my mind off of it and wake up the next morning and I usually feel better. So, um, I'm not superhuman just because I've built two companies and been successful with two companies. I still am a human and I still have feelings and emotions and things still don't go the right way sometimes. And I feel bad about those. And it's really about how do you fight on from that? Like, how do you pick yourself up and have and want to win the next game? It's like sports. Like you
Yeah.
lose the game, all right, it's done. Put it behind you. Move on. We got a new game. We got to play.
Yeah, and I also imagine if you're using a sports analogy, like you've seen more plays go wrong than someone who's less experienced too. And so um you have more clarity into the risks than someone who's newer who's going to feel more confident because they don't know the downsides too.
Yeah, true, possibly. But there's a nice thing about that being a little naive when you're young and
Yeah,
inexperienced.
that's true.
You
That's
don't know
true.
where you're
That's
going.
true.
It's just like there's no walls that you can't get through at that point. But
Yeah,
once you get a little
that's
bit
true.
older and experienced, you also realize like, okay, I'm not invincible, and things can go wrong. I do have this experience, so hopefully I can navigate it. But things can go wrong. Like this isn't a sure thing.
Yeah. What other experiments or challenges are you kind of thinking through in the next stages of your business?
Well, like I mentioned, we're trying to reposition the brand a little bit of from the founders, from the previous owners of this business. We're trying to make it a little bit of our own, and that also means the product and the customer that we're going after. And so it's a little bit of reinventing. Like we're still a dog person focused company. Previously, it was a little bit more novelty. It was a little bit more like cartoony prints on pajamas and stuff you could wear in your house. We're trying to be a little bit more of a nicer product, premium lifestyle that just happens to be for dog people with that functionality, but that identity too. I think that identity is a big part of it. So we're navigating that, which is, I'm not a fashion designer, right? Nor is my wife really. I mean, she's definitely more fashionable than I am, but neither one of us are fashion designers. So it's what we could get away with before, what the brand could get away with before wasn't really fashion because it was leaned more toward novelty. And as soon as you try to get into more trend or fashion, then it becomes a little harder. Um, so I think that's one of probably our biggest challenges right now is how do we navigate that? And do we bring on somebody again? Do we work with, there's groups out there that'll help with this kind of stuff too. And product development. Do we work with them? Do we try to bring somebody on? Do we partner with somebody? One of the things that's gone through my mind too is like there's plenty of other apparel founders out there, apparel brand founders and direct to consumer brand founders. Maybe we join forces with one of them and like bring all of our things that we have and all the things that they have together. Maybe 1 + 1 = 5 in this case. So I'm trying to think outside the box and think about like what makes most sense for us in this brand and how can we be most successful with it. Um,
Hmm.
and that might be something a little bit different than the norm.
And what makes you wrestle with this? Because I remember you said earlier that the previous brand, right, or current brand, but previous positioning of it
Yep.
was key man risk. It was about the founder, right?
Yep.
And so I hear you on the transition of moving from founder dominant to now kind of, I don't want to say faceless, but I'll give it that, right? Um, and so now also you're thinking about a shift to a more premium brand. What inspired that shift?
Well, to touch on the faceless part of it, I actually think that we still need to be more of the face of it. I think in this day and age, founder-led content on social is important, or owner-led content. We're not founders. We can't claim to be founders, but owner-led content. We probably don't do a good enough job of creating that kind of content, and need to do more of it. And I think brands have had success with that. And because that builds community and that builds um, camaraderie and trust and everything in the brand, and people want to see your story and why you're doing this, and they want to see behind the curtain. So I don't want to be completely faceless necessarily, but I also just don't want to try to replace or copy the previous owner, because that's not successful. Like, that's just fake. And that's not going to work. So I think there needs to be part of that. The premium side is really just like personal preference, honestly. Like, we
Yeah, I got
we
it.
want to make a brand that we like. We're not talking like Louis Vuitton premium. We're talking, Viore, or, like premium lifestyle brand, using good products, good materials, good functionality, and something that, we try to think about it like the Nordstrom test. Could this product that we're developing hang on the shelves of Nordstrom? Is it at that level, or is this like, you know, novelty? And it's not. We don't want to be novelty. Some of the stuff you'll see in, like, we don't even think of ourselves as a pet brand anymore, right? It started really as sort of a pet brand, but it's really more of a lifestyle brand. The pet is the lifestyle, the dog is the lifestyle, and it's for people who live that lifestyle. So it's not going to show up in Petco or PetSmart, because those are pet brands, and that's typically cheap novelty product. We want to build a lifestyle brand for dog people, and the dog is the lifestyle. So it's a little nuance. I mean, it's just like, it's a little
Yeah.
nuance, and it makes a big difference in what we're trying to build. There's a ton
I
of
mean, imagine.
dog clothing brands out there. There's a ton of pet apparel brands, right? And it's just, we're trying to do something a little different.
And I imagine, so when you say um, novelty versus premium, a novelty brand is one where a consumer goes up and goes, geez, I've never seen this before. I've never seen, in your case, matching clothes between a dog and its owner, right? Versus premium, which is like, I've seen this and I know it's high quality, right? And is that a fair distinction between the two positions?
I think so. And I think it's also more about identity. Like, what we're trying to build now is more about identity. Somebody who identifies as, yeah, I'm a dog person. I love my dog. They go everywhere with me. I love dog rescues. I love to rescue, dogs. I think that's important. So it's really more about identity versus something you can buy because you think it's funny or cute or whatever, but it's more of like a disposable product in your mind. Um, Something
Yeah,
that's cheap, cheaply made, inexpensive, and more for like a one-time photo op, and not something that you would wear over and over, that you feel like is your identity. People wear Travis Matthew because it signifies you're a golfer, and that's the identity, and people know that and they see
yeah,
it. So that's kind of what we're thinking.
yeah, I got it. And so I imagine the shift from a novelty brand to an identity-based brand probably also means you have more purchasing power and people buy more for longer, right? They'll upsell and recur to buy, or reoccurring in your case, um, and purchase more over time. So it seems like a net win, but I also imagine the cost of product goes up, the cost to acquire a customer goes up. That's kind of the bet you're making.
Correct. Yeah. And we have a huge customer base, and some of those will come along for this journey and want to see that type of product. Our best-selling product right now are, you can kind of see them in the bags here, but robes, bathrobes for women, mostly for women. We have some colors now for men too. Um, but like high quality, plush, comfortable bathrobes. And we make a matching robe for the dog, which has functionality too. It's like a calming robe. It's got a strap, like a swaddle strap around it. So it's soft like a blanket, keeps the dog warm and dry, but it also creates this calming effect. But it's also, there's something about having both of them and matching with your dog that people love. So, but that's not, it's $150 for a matching set. It's not cheap quality and it's not a inexpensive product, but it's also our top seller. And so we have that customer that wants that kind of thing. Um, and we just got to make more of it.
How are you making this positioning decision? Like, is it because in like context, we're also going through a positioning exercise now for ourselves, right? Um, and so are you thinking through like, um, are you doing data analysis? Are you doing more judgment fields or framework you're using? Like, how are you making the decision?
It's a combination of a bunch of things. I mean, again, thank goodness for AI because we can use AI
Yeah.
to hash out a lot of this stuff and get market data and just be able to even have this conversation with Claude, right? Where it's almost like you're talking
Yeah.
to an expert. So that's part of it. Part of it is just intuition and what we're seeing. We've done a few events in person where some of the dog rescues, like Pasadena Humane and Humane Colorado here, they do big events for fundraising. And so they do like a 5K walk run and have 2 or 3,000 people show up with their dogs. And we've had a booth at a couple of these. And so a lot of it is observation too. When we look at these 2,000 people that are there with their dogs, who are they? What do they look like? What are they dressed like? A lot of them do have they're wearing a shirt or a sweatshirt or a hat that is identity driven, saying they are a dog person or they support rescues or whatever it is. Um, and, and then we look at the market and say, who is serving those people right now? And where is there a gap? And that's kind of like how we're
Yeah.
analyzing the whole thing.
Are you gonna test it? Like, how would you test it?
Hard to test, but we have tested it already
Yeah.
with some of the products that we've made. We created a crossbody bag that you see, like Lululemon has all these like nylon crossbody bags. We created a little bit more elevated one made out of vegan leather with like metal hardware. It looks nice. A woman could like wear this out all anywhere, but it's got functionality for dog walking. So it's got like a little discreet dispenser for a poop bag and a little
Oh,
hook
that's cool.
things on and
Yeah.
everything. And those have been really successful in selling well. So we've kind of tested with limited quantities of certain products to see, are people willing to spend $78 on a bag that's made for dog walking? Turns out, yeah, they are. And so, we can test it that way. Um, Pretty minimal inventory risk to try it out and see, but it is a little bit of a different customer. So a lot of it is more customer acquisition.
Yeah, yeah, and I imagine there's certain products that fall under the identity premium bucket, and there's certain products that fall under novelty, and we can kind of test a little bit that way, like that one you just mentioned. But it seems like a hard test that isn't survey based.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a lot trying to make stuff and get it out there and see if people buy it.
That's true. That's true. Um, awesome. And so what's I think your biggest focus now? It sounds like it's repositioning and making that decision about investing in people versus not. Is there anything else that's like a, a big focus for you right now?
Um, we've sort of toyed with whether we have like a wholesale side to this and sell into retail stores. We do sell our product into a few small boutique stores in the country. Um, but do we want to like actually build out that whole arm? It feels like a lot to undertake right now. If you try to sell to a Nordstrom, let's say, since I brought them up before, they have like tons of requirements for tagging and labeling and packaging and minimums and payment terms and all these things that are very different than selling direct to consumer on your Shopify store or on Amazon. Um, so that's something we're kind of thinking about, and it feels to me a little too early until we get more team members maybe handling more of the direct to consumer and getting that growing and scaling a little bit faster than it is. But yeah, that's one of the areas that I think we have a lot of opportunity, honestly.
Yeah, it's such a different business, but it's like
Totally.
it's really cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. Um, well, cool, Brian. This has been great. And so where can folks find you?
We are at darrenandphillip.com, DARRENANDPHILLIP. Those are the two dogs that this brand was actually named after in the beginning. And then all the socials is at Darren and Phillip. So Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, everywhere. Find
Are
us
we
there.
going to see you on the socials? Are you going to start
I'm out
doing
there a little bit
owner-like
already.
content?
Yeah, you can
Yeah.
see already there. You can find me demonstrating some of our product or yeah, I'm out there.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, great, Brian. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Brian. This has been fun. Thanks.